Hello class, welcome to Math Minutes video lesson number 32, where we're going to start looking at graphing inequalities on the coordinate plane or the XY plane. So open your notebooks to lesson number 32, and that is on page 5, and we will begin. After graphing inequalities on a number line, we now look at how to graph inequalities on the XY coordinate plane. Now, instead of having an open or closed circle, we will have a solid line or a dotted line. And instead of an arrow pointing left or right, we will shade a portion of the graph. Let's look at the following example of how to graph an inequality on the XY coordinate plane. If you take a look at this equation, we have our slope-intercept form that we are familiar with, y equals mx plus b, but now instead of the equal sign, we have the inequality. It's graphed the same way to start with. How do we begin by graphing in this form? We look at the end. We begin at the end with the b. We begin with the b is a plus 3. 1, 2, 3 on the y-axis. Then we look at our slope, which is a 2, which means our slope is going to be 2 over 1. That means we go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, and we will connect these. But before we do that, let's take a look at what kind of line we're going to have. Are we going to have a solid line or a dotted line? Well, what determines that is whether it's greater than or less than, or if it's greater than or equal to. So the way I remember this is if it has an equal sign, if there's a line, then I'm going to make this a solid line also. And now we're going to shade. How do we shade? Which side am I going to shade on? I'm either going to shade everything over here, or I'm going to shade everything over here. How do I know? Well, let's look at this little factoid right here. Let's test the coordinate 0, 0 by substituting into the equation. Let's substitute 0, 0 into the equation. Well, what does that look like? Well, instead of y, I'm going to have 0 greater than or equal to 2 times what's x? 0 plus 3. And let's just solve for this. Is 0 greater than or equal to what is 2 times 0 is 0 plus 3? Is 0 greater than or equal to 3? Is 0 greater than 3? No. That means if this is not true, nothing on this side is going to be true, which means everything on this side will be true. So we would shade this portion of the graph. Let's take a look at the next page and do some more practicing. So let's start with an equation like this. Let's say we have y is less than or equal to negative 2x plus 3. Okay, here we go. Graph it. Start with a plus 3. 1, 2, 3. Slope, negative 2. So I'm going to go down 2 to the right 1, down 2 to the right 1. Let's check, am I going to make this a solid line or dotted? It's going to be solid because this is an equal sign. I make a solid line. Now, which side do I shade? Let's test this point. Let's substitute 0. Is 0 less than 0 plus 3? Is 0 less than or equal to 3? Yes. If this point is true, that means every coordinate I select is also going to be true, which means I'm going to shade this side of the graph. And let's try another one. What if we have y is greater than 1/2 x minus 2? Well, let's begin at the b, the end. Negative 2, we put our starting point right there. We look at our slope of 1/2. That means up 1 to the right 2, up 1 to the right 2. There. Now let's see what kind of line are we going to have. Well, this time it's greater than. It's not greater than or equal to, okay? That means we're going to connect this, but it's going to be with a dotted line. Now, which side are we going to shade? Well, let's test 0. 0 is greater than 1/2 times 0 minus 2. 0 greater than 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Is 0 greater than negative 2? Yes. That means everything up here is going to be shaded. Let's try one more together. We have y is greater than or equal to 2/3 x plus 1. We start here with a plus 1. We have our slope of 2/3, which means we're going to go up 2, to the right 3, up 2, to the right 3. What are we going to do with our line? It's equal to, so it's going to be solid. So I will draw my line. Now I'm going to test. I'm going to test 0, 0 to determine if it's true. I'm going to shade down here. If it's not true, I'm going to shade everything else. So I'm going to put a 0 times 0 plus 1. Is 0 greater than or equal to, that is 0 plus 1 is 1. Is 0 greater than 1? No, that is not true. That means I'm going to shade everything to the right. Okay, the next page, page 7, there's a couple different ways we can test a point. Say we already have a graph and you just want to know, does the coordinate -2, 3, is that a solution? That means, would it fall in the shaded area of your graph? Well, there's two ways we can do this. The first way is to simply, let's just graph it and look at the coordinate. So if we have an example of this graph right here, we see it's a solid line and we see that all of this is shaded. So if the coordinate is in the shaded area, then yeah, it's a solution. So the coordinate 2, 3, well, where's that? The coordinate 2, 3. That means to the right 2 and up 3. Here's our coordinate. There's 2, 3 right there. Does that point live in the shaded area? Yes. That means that coordinate is a solution for this equation. Well, what if we didn't have the graph and we just want to look at, we just have the coordinate and the inequality? Well, then we just have to substitute. We can look on a graph or we can substitute. So here we have an inequality of y is greater than or equal to 3x minus 2. Is this coordinate 0, 2 a solution? Well, let's substitute it in. Instead of y, which one is y? It's the 2. Let's put a 2 there. There's the 3. Which one is x is 0? So let's put a 0 there, and it's minus 2. Well, 2 is greater than or equal to 3 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Is 2 greater than or equal to negative 2? Yes. Is it a solution? Yes. So let's try a different coordinate. We have our same inequality, but let's substitute in a different coordinate because we know that this is true, but how about this one? So this time y is negative 1. And it's greater than or equal to 3 times what is x? X is 3, and then minus 2. Well, negative 1 is greater than or equal to, what is 3 times 3 is 9. 9 minus 2. So is negative 1 greater than or equal to 7? Well, a negative number is not greater than 7, so this coordinate 3, 1, if it were graphed, it would fall outside of the shaded area. This is not a solution to that inequality. Well, there's your introduction to graphing inequalities. I'm sure you might have some questions, but we'll definitely be going over this in class. So please be sure and fill out your notebook, bring it to class, do your best, and I'll see you soon.